let's talk about Tara Reade. So, for those of you who don't know, Tara Reade is most well known for accusing Joe Biden of assaulting her in a perverted manner, accusing him of using his fingers to to penetrate her and doing some very terrible stuff. Now, the accusation was made. No real evidence was necessarily provided that Joe Biden did this, and it never advanced further from there. It never moved anywhere, and nothing ever amounted from it. But since she made that accusation, she has been involved in a lot of weird movements and weird moments online. And I don't want to go through all of it, from weird endorsements of the Haruhu movement, which are facing criminal charges for the not only pushing Russian propaganda, but also the dead body being found in one of the homes of its organizers, but also has been involved in heavily pushing Russian propaganda and Russian narratives. And this isn't like a new development necessarily. She wrote an article back in 2018 about why a liberal like her loves Vladimir Putin. But this has now culminated in Tara Reade claiming that she is now in Russia, which she did a little press conference with Russian state TV. So it looks like she legitimately, quote unquote, defected to Russia. And the reason she's giving is because she's in fear for her life. Her life is in danger. Let's read a little bit about this, and then we can go watch the press conference, which I saw a little bit of it. She posted it on Twitter, and it was live streaming. But the little bit I saw was just her complaining about Ukraine. So let's read a little bit from the article. Tara Reade, a former Senate aide who accused President Joe Biden of sexual assault, announced Tuesday that she defected to Russia. The shocking confession was made during a Russian state press conference where Reade was sitting next to an alleged Kremlin spy and pal, Maria Butina. Reade told the pro-Putin press that it was a very difficult decision to move, which came after the realization that she no longer feels safe in Biden's America. I'm still kind of in a daze, but I feel very good, she told Sputnik. I feel very surrounded by protection and safety, and I am just so appreciative of Maria Butina and everyone who's been giving me that at a time when it's been very difficult to know if I'm safe or not. You have US and European citizens looking for safe haven here, and luckily the Kremlin is accommodating, so we're lucky. In the hours-long Tuesday conversation, which was live-streamed on Twitter that garnered 500 viewers, Reade touched upon a litany of topics, ranging from Russia's ongoing war with Ukraine to her critiques of America's terrible roads. She asked Russian President Vladimir Putin for citizenship, although she denied any pre-existing ties to Russia. To my Russian brothers and sisters, I'm sorry right now that American elites are choosing to have such an aggressive stance. Just know that most American citizens do want to be friends and hope that we can have unity again, she added, before personally thanking Butina. I'm enjoying my time in Moscow, and I feel very at home. This goes back to her accusations and her previous support for Vladimir Putin. But the rest of this article is stuff we've already somewhat covered. This is extremely strange to me. I don't know exactly what threat she is facing in the United States. She went to the Rage Against the War Machine rally. I saw her speak in person. She didn't give a particularly intelligent or good speech, but she gave a speech praising the Russian flag she saw in the crowd. The flag of the nation that has invaded Ukraine at the supposedly anti-war rally that she was speaking at. She seemed safe and happy and giggling during that speech, so I don't know what's happened in the last few months that has turned her from somebody who was willing to speak in front of thousands of people on a stage, on an elevated stage in the capital of the United States, the center of the American empire, from 3 months later, fearing for her life from some unknown threat that she does not name, and now has to flee to Russia, defect to Russia, do a press conference with Russian state TV officials and accused Russian spies before then begging Vladimir Putin for Russian citizenship. I do not know what threat she faced. She doesn't clarify what threat she faced. She just says that she no longer feels safe. That, you know, the vibes were off in America, I guess. No more details than that. I've got to be honest. Tara Reade, from everything I've seen when it comes to her politics, is very clueless. She's clueless about the war in Ukraine, and she's clueless about much of the political topics that she speaks about. Not only has she pushed a lot of narratives around the Russian invasion of Ukraine that is provably false, I don't think that, and I've seen a lot of people go soft on her, I don't think we should go soft on this woman because of how she entered the public sphere. Because she accused a powerful American politician of some terrible things, of sexual assault, that now that she is moving on to other political topics because of her original, how she originally became known in the public, a lot of people have kind of held back and how they've critiqued her and how she's responded to this. But let me be clear. She's clueless. She's a dunce. She doesn't know anything about the war. And all she has done is repeated Kremlin talking points, pro-war talking points, while supposedly speaking at what was advertised as anti-war events and pushing the Russian narratives, which are then used to kill Ukrainian civilians. I don't think we should go easy on her. Especially since now, and I'm just going to be blunt about this, while I cannot disprove her claims, even though, you know, she didn't really provide any evidence to show that this happened to her, but I also wasn't there, so I don't know. But what's inevitably going to happen as she goes more and more off the rails, as she flees the United States from an unknown threat that she won't point out, is that a lot of people are going to start to look at her as a, you know, boy cried wolf situation, where she keeps making wilder and wilder claims with no evidence, doing crazy actions. PR stunts is what this feels like. If it wasn't a PR stunt, I don't know why she did a press conference with Russian state media outlets. And when I say a press conference with Russian state media outlets, I mean a press conference with Russian state media outlets. If you look at the video here, there's Sputnik, there's Russian state television. It's all of the regulars who did this stream with her, who did this conference with her, where they asked her questions for hours, which range from, wow, what do you think of Russia, to, oh, the evil Ukrainians, you know, the usual stuff. Which, by the way, if I was in fear of my life, I would not spend a significant portion of my press conference rambling about something that's unrelated to the supposed fear of my life. Like, if I did a press conference about, I am about to be assassinated. By the way, can we talk about Myanmar for a second? It's just absolutely bizarre. And let me just be for real with you. That effect is also having its impact on me. If she is known for making wilder and wilder and wilder claims, and the more she talks, the crazier her claims become, the crazier her stories become, the less legitimacy her story is going to have in the eyes of many people. Should there still be an investigation into her claims? If she legitimately wants it, yes, she should be able to pursue that outcome. But we haven't seen that outcome pursued, and now we've seen her flee the country because of a threat that she won't define. Let's watch a little bit of this press conference, because it really is bizarre.
And also taking part in the to interacting media.
Добрый день.
A very good morning to all of you. I'm happy to welcome the participants in this news conference. I would like to welcome our journalists here at the press center and those following our live stream online on the website of the media group's press center and on the social media. We would like to start this news conference titled Crossing the Atlantic in the
Let me just throw out there. I'm trying to imagine what type of dangers Tara Reade could face. And the number one thing that's, of course, popping in my head is maybe the idea is that because of her scandalous accusations against Biden and Hunter Biden and all of the Biden crime family are going to assassinate her to shut her up. When's the last time you guys have heard about Tara Reade? The last time I heard about Tara Reade is when she spoke against the Rage Against the War Machine rally. Wasn't a good speech. No one talks about it. The only thing I remember about it really is that she was like waving to the people flying Russian flags in the audience, the flag of the nation invading Ukraine at a supposedly anti-war rally. A lot of you guys are saying I forgot she existed a year ago. Somebody in chat says that a Haruhu Malpin nonsense. So it's like she has not had any high-profile news stories around her in a very long time. I don't know why she would be so influential that the American government would legitimately target her, or some group would legitimately target her. Who? Who is targeting her? Who's going after her? What's the fear? What's the threat she faces? That's what I want to find out from this press conference. Everything else, her like ranting about Ukraine or like, oh, the evil Ukraino-Nazis, whatever else she's going to say, I've heard it a million times. I heard it at the Rage Against War Machine rally. She's not a terribly convincing person. All I care about is this threat that she faces. I want to hear why she doesn't feel safe anymore in Biden's America.
The name of the truth, and we will learn the story of former Joe Biden's congressional aide Tara Reade, and I'm glad and privileged to introduce her, former congressional aide to Joe Biden, the current U.S. president, writer and essayist Tara Reade. Good morning. And also taking part in this news conference is a member of the Foreign Affairs
Okay, let's skip this. We don't need to hear all this.
Committee.
I'm a really
Here we
You
go.
wanted to share with us.
And I feel really happy to be here, and I feel safe. And for those of you that don't know me, I am a writer, an author, and I'm a former aide for Senator Joe.
Can I just say, opening up a video from within Russia right now with the words, I feel safe, has the biggest gun off of screen vibes in the world. Not saying that's happening, just saying that's the vibe.
Biden. I also worked for
Burns
Leon
is an
Panetta
immoral,
and
morally
worked for
corrupt,
congressional
bankrupt
races
man.
For the Democratic Party and for state senator. In 1993,
Pat and Bell, thank you so much for the primer and being sub for 10 months. Thanks for being the best one on here. Gonna AFK watch while I play the Outlast trials now. Thank you, I appreciate it.
when I was in my 20s, while working for Joe Biden, I was sexually harassed by him and sexually assaulted. I did not go to the media at that time. I filed a report and went through protocol. Nothing was done. I was threatened. I lost my job and I lost my career as a result of coming forward. Then in 2019, it became clear that Joe Biden was running for president, although he was not the front runner at that time. There were 7 other women that came forward. One of those women was Lucy Flores. She was a
Be clear, most of the stories that came out around the Joe Biden stuff, to change it from what her story were, Joe Biden went up behind this woman and embraced her and like went like it was like weird and it kind of looked like he was sniffing their hair. Those are the stories that are being talked about. And there's a lot of like video clips of him like very uncomfortably and inappropriately like embracing people and touching people in that way, right? And that's what the bulk of these stories was. Tara Reade's story is an outlier where it goes into the area of Joe Biden sexually assault me, tried to penetrate me, did try to do that with his fingers, which is like a totally different area than what was being talked about. All of it was inappropriate, but what Tara Reade was talking about was essentially rape, which is very different than what the rest of the stories were. And so when they say that all these people came out against Biden, the type of stories that came forward were very different from Tara Reade and what the rest of these stories were, which Joe Biden did apologize for the rest of their stories, but he never gave any credence to any of the Tara Reade's accusations.
political representative in Nevada, and she was getting torn to pieces by the press for coming forward about Joe Biden's inappropriate behavior. I decided at that time to speak out about my experience in 1993. But before I did, I tried to reach out to congressional representatives privately. No one responded. I reached out to Bernie Sanders. I reached out to AOC. I reached out to Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, who were in California, my representatives, and they gave me silence, no response. Then I went to an organization called Time's Up. Time's Up was an organization in America that was prompted by the Me Too movement, funded by Hollywood stars for millions of dollars to provide legal and PR assistance to people who were coming forward about powerful people that had been harmed. Time's Up has since been dismantled. It's been discovered it was corrupt. And part of the corruption was my case. I went to them for help, not knowing they were already on the payroll.
Okay, this is all the story that she's told before, none of which has, none of the facts of the story of her sexual assault allegation has been proven. Obviously, we don't know. I wasn't there. You weren't there. I want to hear about why she's in danger. Because if the story legitimately is that she just fled to Russia and then just repeats the story that she put out already a few years ago now, before Joe Biden was even president, then it just feels like all she did was go to Russia to then go on Russian state TV and rail against the president of the United States with this accusation before then just attacking Ukraine and trying to justify Russia's actions in killing tons of civilians.
For the Joe Biden.
And by the way, let's for a moment say that Tara Reade and her accusation is true, which that's a possibility. Obviously, that's a possibility. Look, it hasn't been proven, but it's a possibility. Do I think it's a heavy possibility? I mean, considering how she's acting now, it's hard for me to say that. But let's say it's true. In what world, if you were sexually assaulted by someone, would your conclusion be, and I'm saying this as somebody who has, when I was very young, had some terrible things done to me as well. I at no point would think, wow, I'm going to go to like Syria and on Assad's platform and then justify his government actions in between my sexual assault allegations. That's what's happening here. She goes to a foreign country currently invading another, claims that she's in danger, and then on top of endorsing and pushing forward the actions of their state, of Russia, and justifying their invasion, in between that, she's talking about these allegations. Why would you use the platform that is given to you based upon these claims to then justify an invasion of another country where tons of women have made accusation of being raped by Russian soldiers, tons of accusations about sexual misconduct and butchering? And now you're going to go help that force doing those actions in Ukraine right now. For what reason? Some danger? What's the danger?
Biden campaign. He gave them, according to FEC, which is the Federal Elections Commission records, over $2.2 million while I was trying to come forward to try to silence my story. This came out in the press, but very little coverage, of course, in the Western media. While during that time, I was accused.
By the way, it was the Andrew Cuomo story that ended up crashing Time's Up, not hers. Somebody just brought this up in chat. I don't know a ton about it, but I do remember vaguely the Cuomo story around this. Not Tara Reade. That was what ended up killing Time's Up.
Accused when I first came forward of being a Russian asset, of lying, of being discredited. I was accused of all kinds of things, threatened with.
Oh, I wonder why at this Russian state news media press conference where she's going to repeat the same talking points that has been used to invade and conquer Ukraine, why she would be accused of being a Russian asset, as she writes articles about why me as a liberal, I love Vladimir Putin.
Prison, threatened with my life, my family, my pets. It was very difficult. I kept speaking the truth. I kept pushing forward. I kept pushing forward to Republicans, hopefully that would bring an investigation into Joe Biden. Finally, this year, Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, both U.S. Congress representatives, said,
Dude, it's not a good sign if Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene are the only ones that look at your case and say that it's reputable enough to bring forward.
They were
just saying.
Going to investigate Joe Biden. But then what happened is, of course, the attacks on me started again and the threats. People started messaging me, asking me if I was suicidal.
Who?
asking me, making vague threats.
What vague threat? So there was people who made vague threats.
And I could see that starting again. And I put out a viral tweet saying, that I am healthy and I am determined to bring Joe Biden to justice, to bring some sort of investigation, and to testify under oath before Congress if asked. During that time, I had the opportunity.
By the way, can I just say, the Russian elite love to rape, and I know that's a weird statement, and I know that's weird, but the Russian elite, when we talk about Russian oligarchs and the Russian political elite, they 100% have been involved in rape and sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and many of the same activities that she is accusing Joe Biden of. I don't know why particularly someone would feel safer in a country like Russia, which not only has its own problem with rape, but also domestic violence, where women are not that empowered to defend themselves with the legal system against domestic abuse and spousal rape. Just I'm trying to think in my mind, like a sexual abuse victim wants to go somewhere where they would feel safe away from all the sexual abuse, and the country you go to is Russia. I just don't understand it. And again, like, what is it really just vague threats? That's what caused her to go to Russia. If that's all it caused to make people like flee, I should have fled America years ago. Because I get vague like emails all the time of like, I'm gonna bomb you. And I'm not saying that's good, but I'm just saying I don't know how. And all the details she gave us was vague threats. She didn't show any examples, anything like that. But if I had a vague threat on Twitter or Instagram.
Blue Rider of Neptune gave Artbra a tier 1 subscription. Objection. Your Honor, Dylan, is there any evidence that Tara Reade is even Dark Brandon's type?
That's terrible. I'm not responding to that. Thank you for the tier 1, but that's terrible. You completely set off my train of thought. That's so terrible. You set me off my train of thought. But man, I really don't understand her actions. I don't this is not how any other sexual assault survivor has acted ever. I don't understand her actions.
To come to Moscow, Russia. I've always loved Russia. I do not see Russia as an enemy, nor do many of my fellow American citizens. This illusion that Russia is...
The majority of Americans, when it comes to polling, does see Russia as either aggressive or an enemy, or at the lowest ranking, I think, like competitor. I saw some Pew Research polling saw that the opinion of Russia in the eyes of the American public is the worst it has been since the end of the Cold War.
As the enemy is propagated by a few Washington elites who are determined to cause problems. In fact, I'll take you back a minute. In 2019, one of the things that got me in a little bit of trouble was that I said out loud that Joe Biden, if he were to become president, would try to go to war with Russia because of his warmongering in the past, and because based on what I had heard when I worked way back as a staffer and then watched as a geopolitical analyst what was happening and the movements that were happening by NATO.
As a geopolitical analyst, shut the fuck up, Tara Reade. Dude, I don't even know how she puts on her pants in the morning when she talks about politics and how clueless she is, let alone designating herself a geopolitical analyst. Get out of here. Get out of the thing she heard as a staffer. So what did she hear as a staffer 30 years ago that would indicate after the collapse of the Soviet Union, mind you, we're talking 1993. So this is like Yeltsin eras. So Biden was talking about invading Russia during the Yeltsin administration, someone we helped to get elected. What does that even mean? Dude, she's bullshitting her way through all of this, man. Completely clueless, man. She's just saying what the audience wants to hear. She knows what the Russian state wants to hear her say. She knows what would be useful to the Russian propagandists. So she's just saying, oh, Joe Biden always wanted war with Russia. Ignore the fact that it was the Russians who invaded Ukraine and not Joe Biden who invaded Russia. Ignore the fact that since the beginning, Joe Biden said no troops on the ground. Ignore all this information. Ignore the fact that during the time when she was working as a staffer for Joe Biden, Putin wasn't even in the administration, wasn't even in power in Russia. It was Yeltsin. Are we really going to say that Joe Biden was like, we need to get rid of this Yeltsin guy. We need to invade, take Moscow. We need a war with Russia to take Yeltsin. What did she hear during her time working for Joe Biden? Anything that she can prove? Or is it just all hearsay, which seems to be everything that she says in public seems to be hearsay? Stuff that she can't confirm. Unconfirmed hearsay.
And by the United States. So that brings me back to the present. I had an opportunity to have my book, which is already published in different languages. I took that opportunity and had meetings and had a vacation and enjoyed Moscow. Apparently, the US government wasn't happy with my choice of vacation spots. So it became clear that going back might be a problem. I don't know.
What does that mean? That's so little detail. What, she didn't tell it. Well, okay, give us more detail than that.
The level of which the attacks will continue. I only know that when I got off the plane in Moscow for the first time in a very long time, I felt safe and I felt heard and I felt respected.
Dude, I really wish they respected and heard the Ukrainians that they're raping, pillaging, looting, and murdering that she's trying to enable. Oh, woe is you.
And that has not happened in my own country. I did talk to US Congressman Matt Gaetz. I have not concealed anything. I told him I was in Moscow, Russia, and I told him why. And he said something very stunning. I am considered a whistleblower, as you know, in the United States. One of the cases I will be testifying is about how the DOJ and the FBI has weaponized by the Biden administration.
Dude, she still hasn't said what she needs to be safe from. All she said is literally the words vague threats. I don't even need to call them vague threats. She called them herself vague threats from anonymous people on the internet. What is she supposed to be scared of? Now she's saying, oh, going back to the United States is going to be trouble. What type of trouble? Is the government going to wag their finger at you? Are they going to call you to some hearing? Are they going to lock you up? Are they going to Guantanamo you? Are they going to Kennedy situation? What are they going to do?
Against its own citizens. So he said, Tara, you know, I'm worried about your physical safety in the United States. As a US citizen, to hear a US congressman basically say they couldn't protect me in a whistleblower case is stunning.
So Matt Gaetz, far-right lunatic Matt Gaetz tells you in a text message conversation that he's worried about your safety, and that's all it takes? Is that it, really?
And it makes me angry. And I want to say to my fellow American citizens,
do we get to see these texts or any? Of course.
As these cases against all of us are coming forward that speak out, I want you to remember the US Congress works for the US citizens. They work for us. We don't work for them. And we need to take back our power. We need to take back.
Dude, it's so funny hearing her say this in fucking Russia. In America, Congress are supposed to work for the people, and we need to take that power back. I say this from Moscow, a place where I feel liberated, where all the people are politically empowered. Everyone's free to criticize and speak and say their piece. What is this nonsense? Well, dude, what the fuck? This is like going to North Korea and coming and then turning to Americans saying, oof, you guys over there, ooh, kind of a cult of personality around people like Biden and Trump these days. Like, dog, come on, man.
Back our truth and be able to speak it without fear of reprisal or physical harm. So, the American people are very sick of hearing about the Russophobia. The poll numbers are showing.
I'm sorry. The American people are sick of the Russophobia. When I call home, my grandmother, she picked up the phone and she was like, Dylan. And I was like, yes. Hello, Dylan. How are you doing? Did you eat the pie I packed you? Yes, Grandma, I ate the pie. Was it good? Oh, it was fantastic, Grandma. Hey, I know how you love blueberry pie. I do love blueberry pie, Grandma. I was looking on the news the other day, and God, this Russophobia is getting out of control. Like, I know that, you know, a few people in Ukraine were murdered and bombed and slaughtered and raped and mass graves were filled, but I saw some Russian vodka took off the shelf the other day. Oh, God, being a Russian today is like a Jew in 1940s Germany. There's no difference at all. Get out of here, man. She's just acting as a mouthpiece for the Russian government. Americans do not. What evidence is there that Americans are generally concerned and worried about rising levels of Russophobia? Where is the huge outbreak in Russophobic hate crimes? You know, during World War I, German Americans were lynched and forcefully assimilated, and it's only intensified in this process completed after World War II as well. They were lynched. And now, like, what's the level what level of Russophobia are we even complaining about here in the United States? And as much as, look, I'm going to say, of course, that if somebody's Russian, you should not discriminate against them for being Russian. But when a country invades another country and engages in atrocities, animosity towards the people who did that is a natural occurrence after invasions. I'm not saying it's right, but it's happened every time. I think it would probably, on an interpersonal level, be wrong for a Vietnamese person during the Vietnam War to go up to some random American and be like, fuck you, or something like that, or I don't like America, or I don't like Americans. I guess interpersonally that's wrong. But is that what we should be focusing on when it comes to the Vietnam War? Some Vietnamese guy saying, fuck you, Yankee, Yankee, go home. Is that mean? I guess it's mean, but I think I more care about the children being firebombed and being covered in napalm. That's what I care about on a higher level.
They're not in support of the proxy war that NATO and the U.S. are waging.
See, look at this. She's talking about her about herself getting sexually assaulted, and then she pivots into Ukraine being a proxy war. This is legitimately, you repeat our Russian state propaganda lies on our Russian state propaganda news outlets, and we will give you a new platform to tell your tale of your horrible interaction with Joe Biden. If you help justify our invasion and our rapes and our murders and our destruction, then we will allow you to highlight the misdeed that Joe Biden, possibly, we don't have confirmation of any of this, we don't have proof of any of this, that Joe Biden, you say, did to you. Which, of course, assists the Russians as well, because Joe Biden's the American president. This is like textbook, just like propaganda. She didn't even try. She didn't even attempt to like cover it up in any way. I mean, she just fully submitted. It's not going to be that long until we see Tara Reade on one of those Kremlin talk shows hosted on Russian state TV, where she's on there saying everybody in America loves Russia, and the only ones who don't are the racist Nazis. And America's bridges are being destroyed and crumbling in American infrastructure, and Joe Biden's a pedophile, and that's what she's gonna do. I genuinely believe that. I don't think there's any point of return now for Tara Reade. I think she's completely submitted herself to being a propagandist.
I have been very outspoken about this. As a geopolitical analyst, I've been very outspoken about the U.S. and its endless wars. There are many of us, and I spoke at the Rage Against the War Machine, a rally in Washington, D.C.
I watched it. It was shit. It was garbage. She was very clueless. It was the same thing she always does. Just ramble.
That are tired of all the resources going into the military. This year,
until she went to Russia, a country that is giving much more of its overall GDP into military spending than the United States. So she went to Russia, a country totally not known for trying to spend a lot on the military per its GDP, as a percentage of GDP. Not known for that at all. If anything, Russia's known for its healthy and strong infrastructure and low levels of corruption. And so, since it's already solved all the societies in Russia, all the societal problems in Russia, it can take its money and allocate it for the military as much as it wants, because there's no poverty in Russia anymore. Everything's fine in Russia.
For the first time coming up, the defense budget will be $1 trillion, which is an unimaginable amount. Meanwhile,
then the problem is, there's a real conversation to be sat down and talk about a Pentagon audit, completing to 100% a Pentagon audit, talking about military allocament and how much of this is pork barrel spending, how much of this is necessary spending, how much of this is necessary to support our allies, how much of this is not necessary, how much more can our allies carry the weight, and how much more can we can remove from this type of spending in order to concentrate on other issues. So this is a real conversation to have. But Tara Reade, acting as a Prussian propagandist, saying this makes it a harder conversation to have, because now when people go and try to have this conversation later, it's going to be, isn't this the thing that the Russian propagandist is worried about? Isn't this the thing that I heard from that one person acting as a mouthpiece for the Russian state? Is this Russian propaganda? As we try to have a conversation about an audit of the Pentagon later, that could be something we run into, because if this is where the critique is coming from, it's coming from the worst possible source.
Roads in America are falling apart. The infrastructure is, the economy.
Dude, I didn't even... I'm a wizard. The roads are falling apart. Yeah, okay, in Russia, there. If I know... Look, Russian infrastructure is perfect. It isn't at all known for being extremely decrepit and faulty.
Is down and inflation is up 40%. We have the highest child poverty rate we've ever had, the highest homeless rate in history. Our economy is crashing.
What does it mean, highest homeless rate in history? Like history of the war? Oh, I don't even know what that means.
And they're continuing to warmonger. Recently, it came to my
attention. It's from Russia on Russian state TV. Dude, come on.
That one of those representatives said something incredibly deplorable. And that's what he said was, speaking, I believe, to the Kiev regime that...
The Kiev regime. Okay, we're done. We're done. We don't need any more of this. Now, again, press conference about her being afraid for her life. All she said is, I don't know, I got some vague threats online. This one far-right lunatic congressman said they're scared about my safety. So I've decided, in order to flee this horrible warmongering regime, I'm going to move to Russia. Get out of here. Tara Reade is a joke. That's enough of that. I'm done.